course, Columbia is home to several familiar neighborhoods: Shandon, Forest Acres, and Heathwood, just to name a few. But there's a Of course, Columbia is home to several familiar neighborhoods: Shandon, Forest Acres, and Heathwood, just to name a few. But there's another community that some of you may have never heard about. We're talking about Frogtown. Tonight, our Brandon Taylor takes a closer look.
February is the month designated to honor and acknowledge Black history, the change makers, leaders, and ordinary people who made an impact on our society. Tonight, we share the story of what was a predominantly Black community in the early 20th century. It's a small area, just 2 streets in what is now known as Shandon. These are the stories of Columbia's Frogtown.
What comes to mind when you hear the word Frogtown? Some people may say you're thinking about a pool of frogs. Total fiction. This is a community that was founded on faith, family, and love and togetherness, and we still hold that bond.
Sonia Hodges-Grantham is a walking wealth of information that's now being used to tell the stories of Columbia's Frogtown.
This community has a rich history. Long before the programs of affirmative action, we had educators, we had barbers, we had seamstress, we had nurses. We were a self-contained community, small business owners. We had everything except for a hospital.
Grantham grew up in this small community that consists of only 2 streets, Monroe and Hayward.
If anything happens, if we lose a loved one in the community or someone that moved away, we come together.
When you're looking at neighborhoods, as Columbia, as the state capital evolved, it actually, by the mid-20th century, had become a far more segregated city than it had ever been before.
John Shearer with Historic Columbia has been working to gather details about Frogtown, history he is hoping can be preserved.
Clearly, it's part of this larger neighborhood. When you look at Shandon, how Shandon grew over time, and it's very close to Rosewood. So I just started digging, and really the earliest reference that I found to it in either the Columbia Record or the state newspapers was in 1930 and 1941.
Born in 1940, Evelyn Reese Cannon was one of the original residents of Frogtown. One of 10 children, she remembers attending the old Milford School before it closed in 1949 and still remains a member of what is now New Shiloh Baptist Church, which sits in the center of the community.
We had a wooden church that my dad, my uncles, my granddad, the men in the neighborhood built the first church, and that was before I was born.
Part of Frogtown's history includes this wall, which was built during a divisive time in our nation's history.
This wall was put here to divide us because they did not want the exclusive homes to be a part of a neighborhood that was called substandard for living.
According to Grantham, the wall separated the nearly 100 residents of Frogtown from their white neighbors.
I don't know who he was that sold the property down there on the other side of the wall. They wanted to fence it in, but we couldn't say anything about it. When they put the wall up, it was fine. But it just cut us out from doing a shortcut going where we was going.
Portions of the wall still remain, but without hearing the stories or knowing the history, you miss its significance.
It's in those tangible links that we have kind of a touchstone to a time that may be familiar to many, but may be totally foreign to others.
There are many more stories to be told about what happened in Frogtown, but when asked why they call it Frogtown, at 81, Ms. Cannon says as a child, when she asked her uncle, one of the founders,
he told us that, I don't know if it was true or not, but he said that when it rained baby frogs.
A celebration for Columbia's Frogtown is planned for July 4th. According to organizers, a plaque will be placed on the wall to honor the community's rich history. Both women say the wall should remain because it helps tell the story of Frogtown. In the studio, Brandon Taylor, News 19 WLTX.